Job costing allows you to track all of your expenses throughout a job so you can course correct before it's too late. Let's check out how to do this in JobTread. You're going to be in the budget tab of a job, and here you'll see we already have an estimate built, and we've even sent out some bid requests during the estimating process. And in fact, I already did send out a customer order to my customer and they signed it, so we are approved and ready to move forward with the job. So at this point, I'm going to scroll to the right on my budget and I will notice that I have a job costing section. In here, you'll see that the budgeted cost column is populated because that is informed by our customer order that we already got signed. So therefore, I have an approved budget to move forward with the job. Now, in a fixed price job, if you go over any of these budgeted amounts, you're actually going to be eating into your profits. However, for a cost plus job, you can indeed go over these amounts and you'll be adding profit on top of those, on top of the overage, so you won't have to worry about it. So here I have my budgeted cost, and now I can start tracking all my expenses against that. So I have a committed cost column. This is where I'm going to end up putting in vendor orders such as purchase orders or work orders. And that's basically saying, hey, I intend to spend this money, but I'm not quite ready to actually spend it yet. So you're committing those funds so you don't spend them elsewhere. And that will help inform your projected cost. You also have your bills section. This is where you will be tracking your actual expenses. So any expense documents that you create, like receipts that you're tracking, or also any bills that are marked as payable or actually paid, they will all land in this column. Then, of course, we have the hours and the time tracked by your employees using JobTread's time tracking tool. So here you'll notice that they're all going to enter in these columns so we can track all of the cost of your time against that budget. When you're ready and you feel like you've spent everything you intended to within one of these line items, you're going to mark it as final. And that's going to communicate to the system, hey, I don't plan to spend any more money in this line item, so you can confidently move forward, but also your actual cost and your projected cost will now end up evening out, and you can track all your profits to see if you're over or under in that line item overall. So let's go through and create some of our job costing documents. So when we're ready to create a committed cost, what you're going to do is you're going to click on plus document in the top, and then you're going to choose a vendor order, which will populate that column. So in this case, I'm just going to do a work order. Maybe I use these same subcontractors every single time, so I'll go ahead and just submit a work order for them. So we'll click work order. And now I'm going to choose the subcontractor that I'd like to use. So I'm going to do a carpentry one, DS Finished Carpentry, and then I can choose which items from my budget I want to include on that vendor order. So I can select either the entire group of items, or I can expand and just select an individual item. Let's go ahead and just add the whole group here. Then you're going to click Create. Now you'll see that you have a work order that is in draft mode, so you can edit everything just by clicking to edit. You can add in the whole scope of work here. That would be helpful for your recipient. And then, of course, you can go down here and you can choose to click on any of these little icons to show or hide different portions of this document. Maybe I wanted to add some more details to one of these line items as well, just to help them understand what we're looking for. So I can click on one of the line items and then I can add a description. And you'll see that it populates below that line item on the document. You can do the same thing at the group level. All right, then of course at the bottom you can have your provisions or your terms and conditions, and you can edit them at any time, but those are pulled from your document template that you've already set up. And then you can collect a vendor signature. On the right-hand side, you'll see that we have some additional settings. So you can add a subject for this. The subject is going to accompany the name of the document. So I'm going to call this Framing Time and Materials. And then we can go down and upload any files, photos, videos, plans that we need them to reference. We'll hit save, and now we're ready to send this off. So I'll go ahead and hit send, and this will send off to the primary contact on that vendor account. And then I can also edit the email message that I'm sending them. We'll hit send here, and now you'll see it's a pending work order. So what does that look like in the budget? If I go back to my budget, and I scroll over, you'll notice in the committed cost column, I now have a committed cost for my framing, but it is in pending state. That's why we see this small yellow clock icon. Now I can always expand that cell to see what that document is, and of course I can click into that document, and let's go ahead and approve it on behalf of this subcontractor here. So we're gonna approve it for them. Now it's an approved document and it will show up as approved back in our budget. Here it is, and it's a check mark approved document. Perfect. So that's how you create a vendor order from scratch. Now, let's say that you already did a bid request with a vendor and you're ready to now award that bid by creating a purchase order from it. So let's go into that bid request. You can either locate it on your budget here and select the one that you did not decline, or I can go to my Documents tab in my job and it will also show up on here. So we'll open up that bid request, and now you see that it was a submitted bid request. It was signed by that vendor, so we're ready to convert this directly to a vendor order. So I'm going to click plus vendor order, and now I'll choose my vendor order template I'd like to use. In this case, we're going to do a purchase order. And now you'll see that it pulled over the entire scope of work, any of the details that I had already outlined on that bid request. And if I had uploaded any files, photos, and videos on that bid request, it would have pulled them over into this purchase order as well, because we just converted the document. So now you'll see I can edit anything that I need to, choose to show or hide anything. And then when you're ready, click save and send it off. All right, to the primary contact. Send, and now it just sent an email to that vendor with, your logo, your message, and a button to view the document. When they click that button, it will open up this document in their web browser. There's no need for them to create a username or password to access the document unless they want to set up a username and password in their portal profile. Otherwise, it's a magic link that will just open their portal for them. So here we go. Let's then go ahead and approve this on their behalf. And if we go back to our budget, collapse that cell, now you can see we have an approved committed cost for plumbing. All right, so now let's move on and let's create some bills. The first use case will say that we went to Home Depot when we purchased some supplies. So we're going to record a receipt. So I will end up clicking on plus document. Now I'm going to choose the vendor bill that I'm going to create. In this case, my receipt one is going to be logged as an expense template. And now I choose the vendor in which I purchased the items. So I could say Home Depot. There it is. Now this screen is really important because this is where I'm going to identify how much I spent on each of the items. So I'm going to expand these so I can view all my cost items. And then also I'm going to choose to view the approved total. So if I click on this drop down, this is the approved cost for these items. So I can truly see if I'm going over or under based on what I just spent. So now I can go into this column, which says this document, and I can enter in the totals from my receipt. So let's say that we went to Home Depot and we purchased some garbage bags for, let's say it was $45. So in this case, we did go over the approved amount. That's fine. We'll do a change order later. Now I also maybe went and purchased some electrical supplies. So I'm going to enter in maybe $275 here. And then I maybe also purchased some cleaning materials. So when you enter these totals, make sure that you include the tax amount in there as well, because this is just the total that we're tracking against the budget. All right, fantastic. So I entered in the totals and now I'll click create. Now you'll see on this document that I have all the totals listed here, and we are ready to then say that we paid this using a credit card. So rather than sending this off to somebody or approving it for payment, at this point, all we need to do is record the payment. So I'll click record payment, and then I'll choose the payment method, which will be card. I can add in my reference number and even add a note. Hit save, and now you'll see it is a paid expense. Now, also, you probably want to log that receipt, so I would recommend taking a photo of it and uploading it directly in the Files section here on the document. So again, we have a full paper trail of every single expense that we're tracking. All right, let's go back to our budget and see what happened. We'll scroll over, and now you'll see in the Bills column, each of the expenses that we made is now logged. And we did go over budget on our garbage bags, which is why that is showing as red. Okay, let's go ahead and pay out our subcontractors now. So I'm going to first create maybe a bill for subcontractors for just the lumber package. I want them to be able to purchase the materials, but I'm not paying them for labor until later. So I'm going to then create a new document with lumber package in it. Now again, I can always go up and click plus document and add that item, but here's a shortcut. If I just select that item by clicking the number next to it from my budget, I now have the option to click new document with the selected item or items. So I'll click on that option, and now I'm going to choose a vendor bill, and we will select our vendor. Perfect, and see now it maintained the selection that I already made, so I don't need to scroll through here and try to find it. Now at this rate, what I need to do is enter in the total that I'm paying them out. So I'm gonna give them $787.50, click create. So that's what the bill is for. And this is just for materials. So I may say framing materials only. And now I can approve this for payment, and it's now marked as payable. So then when my office goes through all of their payables on Fridays or Mondays, then they can see that this one needs to be paid. Let's say that they're going to record that payment. So click record payment, and maybe they paid by check, put in their reference number, and then they'll click save. Now that is a paid bill. So if we go back to our budget, and we look at that line item, lumber package, you'll see that we had a committed cost, which was our work order, and then we have a bill in that column. So we feel good about this line item. We're not planning to spend any more money, so I'm gonna go ahead and mark this as final. Perfect. Okay, now I can go ahead and pay out my framing labor if I'd like to. So again, we'll click on that line item, click new document with selected, and now I'm going to create another bill. So let's say that they completed the job, they did a great job, so we don't need to change the amount in this bill at all, or maybe it was more or less than we anticipated, so we can change this number to indicate what that total is. So maybe we ended up paying them $4,000 instead of $39.60, and we'll click create. Now again, we can mark this as payable, approve for payment, and then when we're ready to record that payment, we'll go ahead and do so. All right, perfect. Now let's go back into our budget, and we will now see that we have our framing labor added. And again, it's throwing up that red flag because we did go over the budgeted amount for that particular line item. And that will then, in a fixed price job, impact our profits. Now let's go ahead and create a bill for plumbing just based on that purchase order. Again, you can convert a vendor order from the committed cost column into a bill just by opening that document. So we'll go ahead and open the document, our purchase order. And now I can click plus vendor bill in my actions options here and convert it directly to a vendor bill. So I'll choose the bill. And now everything will carry over, all descriptions, all attachments. And then of course I can choose what I'm showing or not. And then we'll go ahead and approve for payment. Okay, so now we're ready to record a payment, and we are going to record maybe a partial payment against this bill. So I'm going to go and do card, or maybe I'll do this by check instead. All right, and now I'll put in the check number and then the amount for this. So again, I can just pay them out materials first and click save. Actually, let's go ahead and backdate that. Perfect. Click save. Now you're going to see one payment against the total, but it's still marked as payable because we have some of the balance left on this bill. So let's go ahead and record another payment today, and we'll choose check. Put in the reference number, and we're going to apply the remaining balance. So then we'll hit save. And now you'll see that we have marked it as paid because we have fulfilled that entire balance. All right, let's go back into our budget here. And then we're going to notice if we scroll over, we do have the bills listed. When you're ready, we're going to mark anything as final. So let's go ahead and mark these two as final. And then you'll notice that that does indeed change the projected cost to whatever the actuals are. Okay, we need to do a couple change orders to make sure that we can balance these numbers out. So there are two ways that you can do change orders in JobTread. The first way is changing the original items that are already in the budget. So let's go ahead and do that for the garbage bags here. So we're going to choose the garbage bags item. We need to add $15 to this. So we'll click New Document with Selected and then select our change order. Now, again, it's going to maintain that selection. So we'll go ahead and click Create. And then at this point, we are going to want to make sure that we're indicating what the difference will be for this change. So currently it's adding in the original estimated amount to this budget. We don't need that. Instead, we want to just add $15 to this item. So I will just click on the item to open up the item details on the right. And now I'm going to put in a quantity of one lump sum. And then that will be the $15 additional. And then it will put the unit price at $21.43 because it's adding on the margin for the customer. Now, if you needed to reduce that total, you could always put a negative in front of that number and it would reduce what's listed as your budgeted cost for that item. We'll leave it as 15 though, and then I'll click save, close that out, and now I can send this off to the customer. Click send, and then we'll get them to sign this. So that's not too big of a deal, 20 some more dollars. That shouldn't really break the bank for them. Perfect. And then we can go ahead and go back to our budget. And now you'll see in the garbage bag section, that total has increased by $15. And if I click on this, you'll see it's because we have a proposal that was the original $30, plus the change order, which gave us an additional $15, which means that this line is now $45 approved, and therefore it matches the bills and that number is no longer red. The other way to do a change order is to add additional items to your budget that reflect those changes. So that's going to kind of be reflected more in the estimating section of your budget. So I can click plus item, or I can go ahead and just clone this original item here. So click the three dots, clone. Now I'm going to call this framing labor change order. And now I can reflect the changes right here. So I'm just going to do one lump sum instead of a certain number of hours. And then we need to add $40 to this. So the unit cost is going to be $40 as the lump sum. And then of course we are adding in our margin for the customer, which is set at 40%. Now, if I save the changes, you'll notice on this change order line, we do not have an approved budget for it quite yet. So the customer has not approved that because we have not sent a change order to them. So now at this point, I can select that item and maybe other items that I've batched as change orders, and then I can click New Document with Selected, select my change order document. Again, we're maintaining that selection. Click Create, and now you'll see you don't need to make any changes here because they are already reflecting the changes from your budget that you had made. So now all I need to do is send this off to my customer and get it signed. Perfect. So let's go back into our budget. All right, and then you'll see framing labor change order should be approved at this point. Yep, approved at the $40. And then that should then balance out this total. Now, one caveat is if you do go this route, you will have two separate lines for one item. So therefore, we need to reconcile against both of those items so we don't have this red number in here and it doesn't look like we're eating away at our profits overall. Now, the beauty of job costing is giving us our profits throughout our job so we can truly track how we're doing. So of course you want to make sure that you leverage those columns toward the end of your budget here to see if you are over or under on each individual line and what that's going to do when it impacts your overall job budget. If you have any questions, contact your customer success manager or email support@jobtread.com and we'll be sure to help you out.